Hello, hello, hello. It's your girl Brandy Janae, and we are back with Love and Marriage Huntsville, Season 9, Episode 14, Reunion Part 1 review. Okay, so I know it's Tuesday. I know the show came on Saturday, but I wanted to wait until after Monday night because so much went down before Saturday with the announcement of Melody's exit from the show. I just really was interested to know if Carlos King would address that issue, or address, not even issue, but address that announcement um, during his Mr. Monday nights. So we will get into that later on after we do the actual review for Love and Marriage Huntsville Reunion Part 1. Okay, get on in here. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can get more reviews like this. Okay, also, I want you to know, if you see it on the bottom of the screen, I have a collaboration with Housewives from a Housewife, that is Housewife Azara. And every Monday at 2 p.m., we are reviewing the Housewives. Okay, right now we're reviewing Real Housewives of Potomac and Married to Medicine. Mondays live at 2 p.m. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you hit that bell notification so that you can be notified when we do go live. We had a mishap yesterday. We had to push the show back. We ended up doing the show, guys, and then never recorded it. Ain't that nothing? So you're going to see a small snippet of us realizing it wasn't recorded. And we're letting you know that we're going to go ahead and redo that review tomorrow. Okay. So that's not our normal day on Wednesday, but we will be live tomorrow to redo this week's review of Real Housewives of Potomac and Married to Medicine. Okay, with that out the way, we're going to jump into Love and Marriage Huntsville, because that is what we're here today for, right? Love and Marriage Huntsville. All right, Love and Marriage Huntsville comes on every Saturday night. We are wrapping up this season, season 9, episode 14. I think the title of the show was Arrest and Relaxation. Arrest using pun, rest and relaxation. Okay, nice, cute little pun. Of course, we know Melody is not so happy with the synopsis for next week, but we'll discuss that next week. Okay, let's jump right on into Love and Marriage Huntsville Reunion Part 1. So we're just going to start off with the cast introduction. Of course, this is the first part of the reunion. Generally, the first part of every reunion, no matter what you're watching, unless it's a competition show where they only have one reunion. But if you have different parts like Housewives, you know that first part of the reunion is generally just, getting everybody together, checking in, seeing what they're wearing. And it's not a whole lot going on, not unless the team comes in hot. If they come in hot, then part 1 might have some fireworks. Generally, they do not. They generally save all the fireworks for part 2. Okay, so the show starts out with the cast arriving. Okay, we have Nell and Chris Fletcher. We have the Scotts, both sets, Kimmy and Maurice Scott, and Marceau and Tisha Scott. Of course, Melody Rogers is arriving alone, and Martell Holt is arriving alone as well. So the team is just going around, checking in on everybody, seeing where they are. Most people were ready. Most people came already prepared with their hair and makeup just to come on and get dressed. Of course, we check in with Destiny. So this is Destiny's first time as a full-time cast member. Most times when we've seen Destiny before, she was just a friend of, not necessarily a part of the main cast. This is her first reunion, a part of the main cast, and poor Destiny has a wardrobe malfunction of some sort in which her dress is not there. So she is letting the team know that they are waiting for the stylist is at the showroom and waiting, to get her dress back to her. Of course, I felt bad for Destiny because, of course, she had this segment where she says, "I know you want to paint me as difficult, but I'm not trying to be difficult." And I don't know. Have you ever felt like sometimes if it's you or another person that it's kind of like, dang, no matter what they do, it just doesn't go right. I feel that way about Destiny. It's like she tried her hardest and I'd be doggone, it just won't go right for her. So she is in danger of putting the whole schedule behind. Poor thing, because um she already has the reputation of being difficult. And so it just really sucks that it would be her dress and her waiting for her dress that would cause a problem with staying on time. Carlos kind of gave her a look. She said, "Well, it looked like he didn't believe me." I don't know. Carlos seemed like he is over Destiny's BS, like many of the audience seems to be as well. But everybody came dressed, everybody looked very nice. Destiny was able to get her dress in time for them to all start together. Carlos made a statement to her when she was letting him know about her dress, like, "Hey, well, we have an option. We have the option of starting with you or starting without you." And that's where I'm coming from. When I'm saying, like, he looked like he kind of over her BS, because that was a little harsh. If you would have had to see it, it was a little harsh the way he said it to her. Like, "Hey, we either gonna start with or without you. Like, I don't have time for this." And that's what made me say, like, "Oh, poor Destiny." Like, it just seemed like it never goes right for her. Poor thing. But everybody looked nice. Nail and Chris Fletcher came out with their matching outfit. She has on like a gold type of dress, which Carlos referenced her to Lowry's seasoning salt. That was pretty cute. Carlos also pokes fun at the guys for competing with him with their suits. One thing I'll give Love and Mary Huntsville and those husbands, honey, is they do come dressed. I really do like to see them with their custom made suits and just what they do with their style. Of course, Martell arrives with a suit too small, but who's surprised about that, right? He comes out, he's like, "Oh, I might not be able to sit down and get up because his pants too tight." We can tell, we can see. I don't know why he always like coming in those too small suits. If he know the pants tight, why don't you get them looser? At least where you can sit down. Hmm. Anyway, the men do come dressed. Everybody looks absolutely wonderful. Destiny, it looks like the theme was supposed to be blue, maybe regal, blue gold, something like that. But Destiny shows up in a red dress. Now, listen, we're not gonna give her too much because we know that she had a wardrobe malfunction. But I'm gonna just put this out here because it was shown in the clip and we're not gonna see it till next week. I don't know how Destiny ended up in the same color as Sunny. That I know just had to eat her up. I don't know if she knew it ahead of time or if she found out once Sunny walked her little big head tail out there. But for some reason, they are both in red. And I know she was probably singing red when she found that out. But we'll get more into that next week once we get into Destiny and Sunny's storyline. Back to this introduction, okay? Oh, Mel and Tisha both came out with their bobs. It's like they had the same bob, but different colors, different styles. But hey, they was doing the doggone thing. Everybody looks gorgeous and wonderful. So as everybody hits the stage and now everybody is there, we're ready to get right into it. Carlos starts off with a package that basically just follows their story from the beginning until where we are now. So of course that includes packages from season 1 up until season 9. That includes seeing Melody and Martell as a married couple and their transition into being single. And as that ended, Carlos, with his little messy tail, Carlos had to turn to Martell just to ask him, like, hey, how did it feel looking at that? The cast seems to agree that Martell felt like he probably was going to cry. And of course, we all feel the same way because every time we see Martell in this reminiscent space, it does feel like he's a little emotional about the things that have been. And maybe rightfully so, because, sir, it's your fault you don't have those things any longer. So maybe you should feel a little sad about it whenever you see it. I don't know. What y'all think, guys? Tell me, jump in. So as we look into the package, again, a little melancholy to see everybody where we started, even as fans, where we started with the comeback group, and then just everything that transpired up until now. Watching Tisha go from a stay-at-home mom to this little mini mogul, watching Mel start off as a power couple, and now she is a power single because she is still moving forward. She is just not moving forward with that ex-husband of hers. And then, like I say, we get into the conversation with Martell and how he feels about what it is he just saw. Of course, I am titling this portion Martell versus Martell. Thank you, Marcel, for giving us that, because that was not a true statement said in this part 1. So again, Martell is asked how he felt about that package, seeing him and Melody once together, what they had, now where they are. Kimmy and Maurice kind of joked and said he's gonna cry. Martell he's got to keep his composure, and so he's like, no, he didn't feel that way. Somehow, I can't really remember, this goes into the Scots. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm fast forwarding. So as Martell is discussing how he feels about the package we just saw, Marceau interrupts and, kind of says like, hey, he doesn't have much respect for Martell anymore. And I mean, like I say, they was just jumping right to it now. Don't ask me why they didn't bring this up during the season. And I don't know if it has a lot to do with the timing of how they film, or if it was just an agreement amongst them to not bring it up. I'm going along with the agreement amongst them to not bring it up. And now the gloves are off because Martell is not keeping up his end of the bargain. That is what I'm leaning towards. But Marceau came there on a mission, and the mission was to bring up the text message that Martell sent to Melody. So he jumps right in with he can't respect Martell because he would send a, explicit photo around, make believing that his wife was doing, sexual things with someone else. So we jumping right into the text message of it all. As you remember, the season started off with Martell having to turn himself in for a harassing communications warrant out for his arrest. Part of that harassing communications included a screenshot from a video. This is from Melody's mouth, from a video they had previously recorded, which on this part 1, Mel interrupts the back and forth because she doesn't like the way the conversation is kind of being made as an alleged, and this has been already settled in court, settled with Martell pleading guilty, which Martell then wants to defend whether he pled guilty and is guilty. So apparently in Martell's mind, there is a difference between pleading guilty and actually being guilty. Y'all can try to figure out what he mean by that, because you either guilty or you're not. And if you plead guilty, then at this point, you are guilty. I mean, it is what it is. If you wasn't, you just would plead not guilty. In the midst of that, but before we get to that, I am going a little bit out of order because there was so much going on. The first half of the reunion was Martell versus Martell, and it was the things he would say out of his own mouth. So even with the Scotts, he wanted to say that he doesn't not support the Scotts, but he's not rooting for them either. So he's not rooting for the Scotts, but he's not rooting for the Scotts. He is just in the middle. So while we try to figure out that part, that is where Marceau comes in and kind of just blast him about the text message. We then discuss whether the text message was, whether he pled guilty or not. That's how we get to him pleading guilty, because Mel jumps in and say, hey, I'm gonna just give y'all the facts because we're not gonna discuss this as if it didn't happen or as if it, is not something that's true or real. This is what happened. He pled guilty, and that's where we are with it. Martell wants to describe the fact that he pled guilty because he needed to be able to appeal it in a higher court. I don't know who gave him that advice, but it is what it is. So again, the part one reunion was not very explosive because again, we spent that first half of the package dissecting Martell versus Martell. And we didn't really get anywhere, okay, at the end of that. So if you felt like you didn't get anywhere with me, please don't blame me because we didn't get anywhere with Marcel either, okay? Next, we're going to go down to, let's see, I'm going through my notes. Okay, I went through that. Let's see. All right, so after we finish dissecting Martell versus Martell, now we're going to get into Maurice's DUI. At that point of filming, Maurice's DUI was still open. So there had not been any judgment made on that case. With that being said, the questions that were being answered were very evasive. Maurice is a lawyer, number one. Maurice is, he knows how to evade questioning. And I think that's what we saw a lot of in this second package. Right, because Kimmy came in ready though. Kimmy was not here for the conversations that were had, nor was Maurice. But I think Kimmy just felt a little more inclined to go ahead and address it all with her castmates. So I know a lot of people are not happy about the exchange Kimmy had with Mel. But I do think that most of that just had to do with production. We needed to produce a show at this point of watching the reunion, and then Mel doing her live about 4 days prior to the reunion actually being shown. What we know, the difference between what we saw on Saturday and what we actually know is that Mel did have conversation with Kimmy off camera that surrounded her explaining why she brought up the things she brought up on camera. However, in my Kimmy voice, Kimmy just seemed to be really upset that the conversations took place at all. And again, we're filming a TV show. So even though they discussed it prior to and off camera and kind of felt like they squashed it, because it's something that the public has seen, it has to be addressed again. So Kimmy basically decided that she was addressing it again and addressing it in the form in which the public saw it, which is without the side conversation that was had off camera. At some point when we're watching reality shows, we do have to try to understand what the timing aspect is, and the fact that some of the things that they've talked about or that they are re-talking about on the reunion that they've already squashed. But for the sake of the reunion, it has to be reopened. I think that's probably the drawback to filming a reality TV show for most reality TV characters. Anyway, back to Maurice and his DUI. So Carlos prides himself on being the type of host that's going to ask the questions that we want to hear. So Carlos went right in. He is asking both Kimmy and Maurice, okay, what time was it? Where were you at between the time you left Black and the time it took you to go home? We established that they did leave in two separate cars. We established that they were at Black together, which Kimmy did say during the season. But they were being just as evasive as they were during the season. Now, Kimmy came in so hot, she had to question Carlos. She asked him flat out, like, are you alleging that I went straight home? Because again, that we want to know, how long did it take Kimmy to go home? Kimmy said that she made a stop on her way home. She didn't, she was being evasive at first, but by the end of the conversation, she acknowledged that she stopped by Credit One, which that was a small little joke because at the top of the conversation, Carlos made a joke about did she visit Credit One after hours, and so apparently she had visited Credit One after hours. That was a little funny in between there, but Maurice stated that the record would show a breathalyzer was taken. He didn't necessarily say whether he took a breathalyzer or not. Um, he was mostly upset at the fact that he was judged by his castmates before the court could judge him. He kind of stood on, I thought you were supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. I mean, Maurice, you know how it goes. But hey, great comeback. Carlos, this is back to my notes. I said this already, but Carlos asked where he was driving between Black and going home. So now, because we're a little confused about the time lapse, so it sounds like they went to Black and maybe they closed Black down, right? So let's say Black closes at about 2 or 3 o'clock, right, in the morning. So if they left in separate cars, we're not really sure how long it takes them to get home. But we do know that the time that Kimmy picked up the call from Maurice to know that he had been booked in jail was 12 o'clock in the afternoon that same day, right? So that is what Carlos was questioning, is kind of what happened in that time frame. Now listen, I don't know if any of you have ever had somebody go to jail or know what that process is, but it does take a few hours between actually being arrested and actually being booked. So I don't know why it is that they were kind of avoiding, addressing the timeline. Maybe that has a lot to do with it being still open. I'm not really sure. But they did a good job at evading any true answers to those questions. And I know Carlos had to have like a huge headache. They did allude to being able to find out on the following season, excuse me, because they both admitted that it would be discussed there. So when it comes to reality stars, them telling us we're not going to talk about it right now, we'll talk about it when it come up, I guess we can't blame them for that. I wish that there was a way for us to get this information out in a more timely fashion so that everything wasn't about 6 months behind. And what I did realize is that they filmed this reunion October of 2024. And so at this point in time, Kiki had passed away. And what I thought was right is that they actually made no mention of it at all. I thought that maybe they hadn't filmed, or that somehow there was a break in filming between that and that time frame when that took place. But that's not true, because even as they opened up the reunion, like I would figure, even if they stopped filming the season before Kiki's passing, once they got to the reunion, it happened. And so there was at this point, no acknowledgement about it. And I'm really kind of curious about why that happened that way. We still got two more parts, so we'll see if it comes up later. Um, so again, Kimmy says she was traveling. Kimmy, kind of went up on Carlos for alleging that there was anything other than them being together, that he possibly made a stop. There possibly was a woman in the car. That's where Kimmy and Mel began to go back and forth about the lipstick comment. Mel made it clear that, hey, she was just discussing the things that was discussed on social media, just like anybody else had discussed her stuff. She thought it was fair game. It really wasn't that serious for her. And so that is where we pretty much end off at, where it comes to Love and Marriage Huntsville Reunion Part 1. Again, there was not a lot of explosive things that happened. We spent the first half doing Martell versus Martell. Martell always is martelling. That's how kind of the phrase I like to use, which he is a ball of contradiction and confusion. My mother said it best, where, we just see Martell dealing with a lot of guilt, shame, and remorse. And it causes him to spiral. Because during that first package, when we did discuss the text messages, he really did not show any remorse. However, we know that he's remorseful for losing his family. So, Martell is just spiraling out of control. Carlos did his best to get him to understand that sending those types of text messages were like basically wrong. Like, I don't know what you're fighting over, what you're trying to do, but you do realize you shouldn't send things like that. And hey, Martell say you get what you give. That's how he feel. You get what you give. I'm not going to be the bigger person. So I think that everybody needs to take note of that. He is not going to be the bigger person. And so if you're expecting him to, expect to be disappointed, which is the reason why we see Mel behaving the way she does when it comes to him, because who got time for that? Nobody. Okay, so again, this reunion review is coming late, just because I did want to wait until Mr. Monday Night did his Monday Night Live, because he is also reviewing Love and Marriage Huntsville. However, the reunion was not the buzz of the weekend. Um it was Melody's announcement that she is exiting the show. We found out that she actually has exited the show as of December. And she also stated that she had been asked to come back. So I was really interested to find out if Carlos King was going to address what took place prior to the Love and Marriage Huntsville reunion being aired. And let's just say he did and he didn't at the same time, right? What I mean by that is that he did not directly address the actual announcement of Melody exiting the show. He did not make mention of that being announced at all. What he did address was the fact that in television world is a little different than like the real world, real life. And he was reiterating, as he has done before, he was reiterating the fact that he does not use what happens on social media as the barometer to what is going to happen on the show. Basically, for lack of better words, or just to put it plain and simple, um, what happens on social media is a different platform than television. And what happens on social media, what is not congruent with what is happening for the television show. There are times in his explanation where that something happens in real time and social media picks it up before before anybody else gets it, and so it has to be addressed on the show. However, there's a difference between there being fodder that takes place on social media and the show following the fodder. I hope that that's a good explanation. I understood that, and that's the reason why I'm saying that was him addressing everything that went down prior to Love and Marriage Huntsville Reunion Part 1 airing on Saturday. He was addressing that to say that what happens on social media is separate from what's being filmed on the reality show, and that things that take place will be addressed on the reality show, but because of the timing and the time frame that it takes to get things out to the public, because of course when you're on the network you have a contract, certain things can't be talked about, said, or done. um and for him, he made, now I don't know if this was like a small little dig. I thought maybe it could have been. Maybe I was reading too much into it, but it could have been. Because what he said in this aspect was he has certain contracts with the network that he has to abide by, that he respects his bosses. Even though he's the creator of the show, he has bosses that he has to answer to, which would be the network, and he respects his bosses. He doesn't want to taint his relationship with his boss. So he is not going to address things basically out of order in terms of what needs to take place for the television show to stay on the network. I understood that, and I think I read in between the lines that that might have been a dig, just a small one, but might have been a dig. And so basically, so at the end, what I gather is that we will see this play out during the filming of the show. Whenever we get that next batch of that next season, I believe we will see this play out. And that's the reason why he is not directly addressing it. And so we will address it at the time that we see it play out. We do know that Love and Marriage Huntsville is currently filming. And so I don't know when they started filming, which is possible that they could have started. Well, if Mel said that she left in December, that may have been when all the pickup letters was going out. And so they may have just started back filming. And again, I do believe that it will be addressed. We may not see it for another 6 to 7 months, but I guess we'll talk about it again then, even though we'll be close to a year without Mel being on the show anyway. So that's all I got for y'all. I ain't got no more, because Love and Marriage Huntsville Reunion Part 1 really wasn't given that much. Martell was martelling and Kimmy was on fire. And I'm not used to seeing Kimmy on fire. I really, Kimmy is still my favorite. Kimmy, I'm not gonna say too much bad about Kimmy, but I kind of just feel like her being on fire was just because she has to address the things. Even though they got over it, they probably talked about it, and she probably understands. But it has to be talked about, and so she still got to bring that same feeling that she had in the first place. I'm gonna just chalk it up to that, and we just gonna leave Kimmy alone right now. Kimmy really don't. They skated by for a while, and maybe she just having a hard time really, being in the hot seat. But that's all I got, y'all. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel. Again, catch me live tomorrow with the housewife Azara, and we will do a live review of Real Housewives of Potomac, their season finale, and Married to Medicine. All right, guys, I'll holler at you later.